The Survivalist Podcast with Mark Puhale and Matt Gould. In each episode of the Survivalist Podcast, we look at different events and catastrophes that could happen in different areas of the world. Then we give you the knowledge, resources, and recommendations you need to survive. We'll explore scenarios from a worldwide financial collapse to a coordinated terrorist attack to a global climate catastrophe and everything in between. The Survivalist Podcast is brought to you by Survival Cash, Ford Survival Supply, and thebugoutrace.com. Please visit our website, thesurvivalistpodcast.com, for more information or to give us feedback. And now, the Survivalist Podcast with Mark Puhale and Matt Gould.
Welcome to the Survivalist Podcast. I'm here with Mark Puhale. We have Tim Ralston here, our special guest from last week. We have him again because we didn't finish talking about gear, and so we want to just pick it up right away and get to the rest of the stuff. Mark Puhale, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. How are you, Matt?
I am great. And Tim, what about you?
You know, I couldn't be better. I'm driving to a much cooler place, Flagstaff, so it's going to be nice to get out of the heat and get someplace that's green. So I'm all excited.
What I thought we still had left to talk about, and I want to hear from you guys, but what I thought we still left to talk about was flashlights, food, solar power, and other alternative power sources, and shelter. And then maybe generators and some new inventions on the horizon. That's what I thought would be best. Does that sound all right with you, Tim?
Sure.
All right, so let's go into flashlights. I've been seeing a term a lot, and I'm sure a lot of seasoned preppers already know this, but I see the term tactical flashlight a lot. What does that mean?
Mark, you want to start off on that one?
I think like tactical flashlight. Remember, tactical from a sales standpoint. Hey, it's tactical. It's military to civilian. But a tactical light is something you could attach to your weapon. So it's going to have high lumens. You could potentially blind an assailant, temporarily blind an assailant. It might have like a laser light combo depending on the style. But I think, Tim, if you'd agree, maybe you agree or don't disagree, that tactical means you could integrate it with the weapon. Put it on a rifle. You could put it with your pistol, depending on the size of the light.
Yeah, I think tactical really is more of a sales term than an actual methodology, really. Flashlight, I mean, just in the past few years, they've really gone through a morphine, and it's the lumens that Mark was talking to. The lumens are how bright it is, and then does it strobe? Does it cause you confusion? Which it does. It buys you a little bit of time. If someone comes in, you have that crazy flash going on in your eyes. But the problem that I have with a tactical flashlight, I'm looking strictly more on the survivalist end. I can't stand them. They have very exotic batteries, and they burn really hot and really fast, and they're bright and all. But I tell you, every time I've ever gone to my bag and needed my tactical light, which I have a lot of them, I get people sending to me all the time. And, each one has a different type of battery that plugs into the wall to recharge, and they only last for a couple of hours, if that. And to me, it's like, okay, it's great if you got brand new fresh batteries and you have an attacker coming at you, and great, you can blind them. But that's never the case. You always ask people, where's your flashlight? Well, I think it's in my drawer, and I think it's charged. I don't know. And its batteries are an Achilles heel. And I'm a flashlight-aholic. I love them. And I kept trying to find what would be the best one. And I finally found one that I really like, and it's called the Hybrid Light. And you guys can go look at it. They're just now coming onto the market pretty hardcore, and they are amazing. And for the simple fact, it's the first solar flashlight that works. There's other flashlights that preppers use with the hand crank, which is great, but atypically the plastic handle always gets really brittle after about a year in your glove box or in your bag. And the first time you really need it, you go to crank on that thing with any kind of power, especially when you're panicked, you'll snap it off and now it's a useless light. The hybrid light is got this integrated solar panel that also at the bottom is got a water sealed compartment that you can unscrew the bottom of your flashlight, and there's a USB port so that you can actually charge your cell phone. It becomes a power station. So it's kind of a twofer there. You've got a charging station, plus you've got this flashlight that's 200 lumens, and it'll last for about 11-hour runtime at night. There's two settings, high and low. And from what I've been gathering from some SWAT unit guys that come into my store, they're all going backwards. It's kind of they're kind of reversing their thought pattern. You know, they had the 800 to 1200 lumen flashlights that almost would get hot out in front of them. But when they go and they breach a house, that bright light bouncing off of white walls basically blinds them
too.
Yeah, so it blinds them. So they said they have to scale it down. So 200 lumens is kind of the best lumen that you should put on your flashlight to still be bright enough, tactical enough, but it's not going to hurt you if you're going into a building that's all white. So that's why I'm like, oh, it can't beat this light. And it floats. So if you're near water and you drop it in the water, it comes back up to the surface. So you just can't lose this thing. So that's the one I kind of swear by, and I put it in my packs. And
that sounds good. How long does that take to charge up if you're outside in Arizona?
Only 5 hours. And it only takes 5 hours to charge, and it'll even do like ambient light. So even the campfire light, any light source starts to charge the battery. And they have a headlight too, which is amazing. And it has a little solar charger that clips on, and put it out in the, outside in the daylight. And then at night you have 8 hours of hands-free. So it's kind of, you got both. You got a torch, and then you got your headset. They've got just so many things. They're coming up with new things all the time. But it's really durable. Like I said, they're water. I've used it like as a little dive light, but just for like snorkeling, nothing really deep, but it works really well. It's pretty amazing.
I gotta check those out. And then if you want to bring up the old school stuff, I can cover that real quick. Like the stuff that I've used in the military, and pretty much I have a good old Surefire light that I've had a couple of them for years, and I don't use them all night long, but the batteries are still good. Honest to God, I've had both Surefires for 5 years with no filters on them, smaller ones. And then I use, like back in my time, long ago, probably Marines and other listeners might laugh at me, I used the mag lights with different filters. I always had extra batteries and redundancy with me, but like for map reading at night, red lens flashlight, so I didn't ruin my night vision, or a blue light. And then like a basic Petzl headlamp. But I'm really intrigued by this one you're talking about, Tim. I got to look that up and pick one of those up.
It really is, like, for the preppers, it's definitely the go-to, because then you're never worried or you're never tied to that. Okay, where's the next source of batteries that you're going to find?
Right.
I always use the school of thumb of using AAA batteries, so I always looked for flashlights that utilize AAA, because I could carry a lot more of them, and then if I ever, had to go into a drugstore, they're going to have AAAs versus these exotic battery sizes. That just
how much is that light?
They have one that's like 160 lumens. That's a small one. It weighs nothing. It almost feels like a toy. It's so lightweight. And that guy, I think, is only like $39.
Yeah, $35. I see the Journey 160, $35 on their website. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah,
and then they got a heavier one, the Journey 250, which is
my favorite.
$45.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, so that's even. I mean, those are less than some Surefires, and some tactical like hog lights, like down in in South Texas. But South Texas hog hunting is a big thing. Indoor hunting, you can hunt hogs regardless of time and year round. So everybody's got a hog, like a green hog light, but they're $100. You guys will plan on for $100 for a basic model. And can you put filters on that light?
They don't have any filters yet, but there's Joe's the guy that runs the company, and he is so open to. We're even contemplating doing a new headlamp that it's all kind of top secret right now, but I'm designing one with him that's really cool. Again, another innovation, but I wouldn't have gone to them until I tested their products out fully.
Right.
And I beat the snot out of them. And I'm like, this is finally the first one that really, really works. And I was so thrilled to get a hold of them. And the 250, when they were saying, oh, it'll charge your cell phone. So, I have an Apple 6, and sure enough, totally dead battery, took 45 minutes, direct sunlight, boom, I'm fully charged.
That's amazing.
That's better than me driving, playing my crazy electronic dance music shit. It won't even charge the phone in the car. Yeah.
Exactly. So as a survival tool, man, that's like a twofer. And that works really, really well. And there's some other smaller LED things that you can, piggyback to it to charge it. And for me, I haven't really, and for our store, I've always looked for solar, and I've had a lot of different solar companies, charging stations and whatnot. And they just never seem to work. But I don't know who he has building his stuff, but it really does work. For me, I'm always out there looking for other alternative sources of power, and kind of segue into your other thing you were talking about, power. And I haven't gotten one yet. I want to get one to test it. There's a new turbine, and it's an air and water turbine. I don't know how they do this one, but it looks like a propeller. Catches the wind or catches the water, and before you know it, it's producing power for you. And so that's just, for me, I got to try that one out, because solar is, what if there's that nuclear winter, or what if they're always overcast, or you're up in Washington, you barely see the sun, occasionally it comes out.
And then, so we were talking about solar power, alternative power, right? So I guess there's two different types of gear you'd need. One would be if you're doing a everyday carry kind of bug out, and one is if it's a long-term kind of situation, right? So what do you guys like for sort of portable power?
Well, for me, I tend to go to my hybrid flashlights. The things that I need to charge, I'm really not a techie guy where I have all the GPS stuff that needs to be charged, but just a 250, the 250 size hybrid would do enough to be able to charge that. I've used some different fold-out mat style charging stations, but with that said, I could never get one that would truly work long enough for me to say, yeah, I'm going to rely on this the rest of my life. This thing really works. I've yet to see one that actually does what it says. The big solid panels tend to be better, but there's just no way you're going to bug out with those things. They're more of a in-place kind of an operation. So,
yeah, I've seen some. One of my buddies, he took a month off of work and he went and hiked in Yosemite, and he told me he bought a couple of the like the portable chargers, the solar panels that, and I think he picked one up maybe between like $300 and $500. So they're a little pricey. The flashlight, to me, for my phone, sounds a lot more reasonable. Because if I'm out there navigating, I'm using a map and a compass and probably a protractor. Yeah. I'm not using a GPS. And if I'm lucky enough to have a cell phone signal on the phone, then I'd probably back up my navigation with my cell phone just to confirm location. And but again, it's unreliable from probably a power. It's going to suck up power if you have the GPS on your phone, and from a signal reliability standpoint, if you're out in the wilderness, you may or may not have cell phone towers to get that signal. But my friend, Unfortunately, I haven't talked to him since he's gotten back from his trip, but I don't think he's been eaten by a bear, but I haven't heard from him. But he got one of the portable chargers that you can just have on the top of your pack. And or if you're riding a bike and you have panniers on your bike, you could have that panel on there charging your electronics equipment, charging your lights for your bike, charging your lights again. But it sounds like, Tim, from your flashlight, it kind of does all of it. So why spend $500
exactly
for a single panel when, we've said this too, we want to be masters of the basics. So how much electronic stuff do you need, especially from an everyday carry standpoint? I could see from my friend going out alone, probably what I'd do, I'd want to have my stuff charged so I could communicate with my family and set checkpoints and, make sure I'm not in a ravine getting ready to saw my arm off or a leg, if I get stuck. But that's the experience I have. And then other than just reading things, I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have any practical experience with them yet. I eventually want to have solar out at my bug out location in South Texas. It's a work in progress.
What about portable shelter, and then what about more long-term shelter?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, there's so many different options as far as different lightweight shelters that you can take with you. I mean, you could get as fancy as you want, and if you research enough of them, the prices that you're going to go against, they're going to run the gamut, anywhere from $30 on sale at Walmart on down. Something is better than nothing, but again, going back to the basics, if I were going to be trapped out in the wilderness, I'm going to build a shelter and have a better insulation than I would off of any tent that I could actually buy. Given enough time and I have the right tools with me, but I'd rather rely on the ability to build than to hike it in. For me, I go with the minimalistic type of thing. My packs, over the years, you as you practice and you start hauling it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting older too, so I just don't want to haul as much gear. Then you're 100 pounds. I can do it, and it was like a badge of honor. I carry 100 pounds for 20 miles. Now it's like, why? I can go ahead and with a tarp and two tarps and a hammock, I can sleep comfortably all night long next to a fire with a reflector than I would in any kind of tent situation. So I think it's just based on your needs and where you're at, what you do. I think personally the shelter systems that I've really been catching my eye are the hammock systems. Hammocks are pretty amazing nowadays, and they come insulated. You're off the ground. So my recommendation is always to be off the ground. It's going to wick all your heat away from you. It's hard to insulate. It's wet. It's hard. You'll never get a good night's sleep. There's, bugs everywhere, and where
bugs,
I'm at,
snakes. Yeah, all kinds of stuff that could get you.
Yeah, I want off the ground as much as possible, and at least I know I'm going to get a good night's sleep.
I can chime in on that. So
yeah, go ahead, Mark.
So some of the things that I have, we talked about racing and stuff before, and challenging yourself. So I don't know how many emergency solar blankets, not solar blankets, they're essentially aluminum the foil blankets you would get put on you after a half marathon or a marathon race. I have 10 or 20 of those things that I have in every single pack of mine that I could use. I could set up a hasty shelter and reinforce it with stuff in the environment. One, I could have that as a barrier for water, and it's going to help insulate me and keep me warmer. From a cost perspective, that's under $5. A tarp is probably under $10. Then there's a poncho. Then you can move into a bivy sack, which is just a cocoon sack with or without a zipper. Then you could move into something like maybe a poncho and a poncho liner, which is quilted with more insulation. Then you could get a sleeping bag and/or a sleeping system with a bivy sack and a bag. And like Tim mentioned, it just depends on how much you want to spend and how much you want to pack and carry. And then from the shelter perspective, you can talk about, a one-man single tent, going to a two-man tent, three-man tent, a larger tent, a yurt, canvas. And then if you're going to stay in one position, that's when you're going to, like, survival is continuous, right? Survival, we'd say in the Marine Corps, if you're in a defensive position, you're constantly improving your defense, or you're constantly improving your fighting position. Just like if I knew I was going to be in the woods for a week or 2 weeks or an unknown amount of time, I would constantly be improving my shelter and making it better. I'd want to make it, the 5-star Ritz with a door, with water, with a fireplace, with a sleep shelf to like a, above the ground, a table, drainage around it, so if it rained heavily, I wouldn't get water in my shelter. I want to keep the bugs out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like a constant improvement for my position. But again, I'm starting with the basics.
Yeah, I love that. That's really useful. All right, just in the interest of keeping it moving, what about, let's talk about first aid. Are you back with us, Tim?
Yeah, I am. I just went through those rolling hills just outside of the dam, so hopefully I have a clear shot at it.
It sounds surprisingly good, actually, considering that you're driving. So first aid, Mark. What's the basics? Yeah, or Tim.
Well, like the basics for first aid is you want to think about like headache, dehydration, allergies, lacerations, breaks, potential heart attack, potential stroke. I mean, some of the big things that you'd see in like your basic first aid course, stroke, bleeding, heart attack, weather injuries, be them cold weather injury, hypothermia, or hot weather injuries with like heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and then nausea, potential poisoning, anaphylaxis. So with all that being said, you can go to your local drugstore and get things for nausea. You can get things for stomach upset. You can maybe or maybe not get stuff for poisoning, but if you suspect poisoning, you could eat charcoal, which could maybe help you. For lacerations and handling
So when
wounds.
you say eat charcoal, you mean literally like you go get a bag of Kingsford or whatever and start eating it?
Not the Kingsford stuff, but I'm saying like burned wood is going to create,
out of your
make carbon. Yeah, you could eat the burned wood from your campfire, exactly. The black. So
once the cold embers or whatever, you can eat that.
Right. You want to make sure that that's not burning anymore before you put it in your mouth. Or you're gonna have burns. That's another piece of first aid is burns. First degree, second degree, third degree burns, and sun exposure. Sorry, Matt, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no. But the store-bought stuff you absolutely cannot eat, right? The Kingsford or the
No, you do not. You don't want to eat that. Yeah, that is that's chemically treated. There's chemicals in that, so you could potentially get poisoned and get sicker. Get sicker.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
What about? Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I was just gonna, for me on the first aid, I'm always thinking to myself, to keep it really simple. And you have two kits. One kit that comes with me, one kit.
Shoot, we lost you again.
Yeah, I think I know where he's going with this. Is that you have potentially a little first aid kit in your everyday carry or your day pack that's it's much lighter, less significant, with maybe an ace bandage to wrap an ankle if you roll it, maybe a compression bandage in case you cut yourself really bad, maybe some butterfly Band-Aids in case you cut yourself with and then some antibiotic cream. Hopefully you'll have water with you so you don't need water to rinse out a potential wound. Maybe you have a Gatorade or an electrolyte pack if you're working in hot climate. You have maybe some energy food like a power bar if you're in a really, really cold environment or you're not bringing a lot of chow with you. And then maybe in your first aid kit too, you have some water purification tabs because we know how important water is. And then you have a cutting tool, you have scissors, maybe you have suture, maybe you have super glue. Super glue and duct tape can fix a lot of wounds in a quick situation. Or if you have a canteen or any type of plastic container that you could tape up the tubing per se. Like in my old Alice pack, there's a metal frame that I could wrap duct tape on it. So I'm carrying the duct tape already that I could use for first aid if need be, or use on my clothes if I get a tear going over some rocks. But again, that first aid, the things you need to do is, one, if you get hurt, you want to survey the situation so you're not in danger, right? So you want to get out of the danger. Then you want to assess yourself or assess the person who got hurt and make sure they're breathing. Make sure if they're not breathing, you need to fix that. If they're bleeding, you need to obviously control the bleeding. If their heart's not working, you want to do CPR to get their heart going. And then if they sustain a break, a head injury, neck injury, cervical trauma in some way, you want to stabilize them and treat them and possibly evacuate them. And I know I'm getting into a lot of stuff, Matt, but I think that's I went from everyday carry to assessing an injury, and then maybe in my ultimate bug out bag, I have a more elaborate first aid kit. Maybe I have some IVs. Maybe I have some tubing to give an IV if need be. Maybe I have some more advanced trauma equipment, potentially sutures to sew up a wound, maybe some surgical instrumentation. Or if this might be, in my bug out location, I'm going to have a first aid kit. And to include first aid, I might have a dental kit because, a toothache or a rotten tooth in a survival situation, you're doing, doggone it, what's the Tom Hanks movie? You're knocking out a tooth
Castaway.
with a damn ice skate. And again, we've said this all before, if you have all these items and if you don't know basic first aid, just like a basic navigation course, a basic survival course, you want to take something like that. Or you have someone in your party who is a nurse. Maybe they're a nurse practitioner. Maybe they're a physician's assistant. Maybe they were an ER nurse, trauma nurse, a physician, even better, a surgeon, a dentist. If you're building a survival community, you'd want to have someone with good medical training, an EMT, or even more advanced.
Yep. All right, but let's try to stay on gear, Mark. I love all this stuff, but let's move to footwear. So, is there one particular type of footwear you should have for any environment to be ready for it, or does it have to vary?
Well, I think a good pair of boots is a good pair of boots that are lightweight, may or may not need to be insulated depending on, again, the time of the year and the environment you're in. Something that's going to give you good support. It's going to support your ankles very well so you don't roll your ankles if you're going over uneven terrain. And it has good soles on it so you don't slip or fall. You have good traction with the shoe. And it's a comfort. It's a usability. It is what's going to work best for you in the environment. If I'm going into a jungle environment that's really wet and I don't want to get a $300 pair of Danner insulated boots, because if they get wet, I'm carrying, cinder blocks on my feet, and then my feet could be open to all kinds of other issues. So I think you look at the environment you're going in, and then you look at what do you need, what terrain you're going over, and how wet or dry is it going to be, how cold is it going to be, and then you pick your footwear.
Yep. Okay. I feel like I want to move to a section that, it seems like every time we do this, Tim and you and Doc, you guys are the experts, and I just ask the questions. Now, one thing I am actually expert in is, just looking at videos, just searching the web for videos, interesting videos. And so I found, towards the end of this podcast, I want to talk about survival hacks. Survival hacks that I've learned about on the internet, and many of them that I've tried, and I want to tell them to you and Tim about it and see what you guys think of it. All right?
Okay.
So one thing that I've done is I took this off a story on Viral Nova that I'm looking at right now, but you can look at this stuff's everywhere. One thing I have done for sure, we were talking about batteries before. If you ever have, do you guys know about this one? Maybe it's obvious. If you ever have, you need AA batteries, but you only have AAA, that you can crumple up aluminum foil in there and stick it on the positive ends, and they'll still work. You guys ever do that? That's a good one.
I haven't done that.
That
sounds because it should conduct the charge across the connection points. It should work. Have you tried it?
I've tried it. It works. I've had a remote, the TV remote that I had it in for almost a year like that. It worked fine. All right, how about this one? If you have an emergency, you have nothing, you can burn a crayon like a candle for about 30 minutes for each crayon.
I've tried that. It works.
It works?
That sounds like it would work. Yep, because there's the wax in the crayon. I don't see why it wouldn't work.
Okay. Now, a lot of fire starter things I've seen. One of them, you can soak cotton balls in petroleum jelly. Yep, you've done that.
I've done that.
Must-have. That's a must-have. Yes. You got it. I do that with dryer lint. Actually, I've done an experiment with that. And if you do just a regular cotton ball and light it, and then you do one that's been, rolled in petroleum jelly, it lasts about 15 minutes longer. So, in a survival, that's amazing. 15 minutes, you better be able to get a fire going with an open flame for 15 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, how about this one? To make a small raft, cover a bunch of branches with a tarp.
Yes.
But not branches. It's going to be leaves and stuff like that. Something lighter, not big, heavy logs. You're going to want to try to make it as light as you can. If you're looking to do a bundle and a debris raft.
And even with that, I'll take that a step further with when I don't know about you, Tim, but I typically pack my stuff in Ziplocs, and then I put my pack is lined with just a hefty trash bag. So all my stuff is in there. It's waterproofed. So my pack can be a swimmer's bundle. So I can throw my pack in the water, and it can be it's a flotation device. If I need to use it to float myself or someone next to me or give it to someone to hold on to, I know it's not going to sink. It might be awkward as hell, but it's waterproof.
Yeah,
I agree. I do that myself. I do those vacuum seal and then everything's going to be dry and neat, but it's also that dual purpose. If you found a water source and you knew it's going to be a long time before the next one, then all my gear goes in the pack, and I've got a dozen Ziploc baggies that I can fill full of water. So
absolutely,
I definitely recommend that.
Yep. All right. How about if you can make an all-natural refrigerator, like if you have some vegetables or some food that you think is going to spoil and it's hot, you can kind of do that by, I guess, digging down into the dirt and putting, I don't know what you do. Have you ever heard anything about that? Oh, ceramic planters is what it says. All right. So you use like a ceramic planter, fill it with dirt, you put another ceramic planter inside of it, and then you keep the vegetables in there. I'm dubious to that one.
Do you
Sorry,
bury it?
I missed the whole question. Sorry.
Yeah, that's now I've heard of larders where you have a storage area like dug into the ground because beneath the surface of the ground, it's cooler. But I don't see just digging a hole and throwing vegetables in it, especially in Texas or Arizona, because it's going to be eaten to shit by ants and bugs and everything else.
Yeah. All right. How about this one? If you get a flat tire, you don't have a spare, fill it with grass to make it to your destination.
Never heard of that one. That'd be a lot of grass.
A lot of grass.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, for run flat. And are you going to make a bigger hole to put the grass in? I mean, where are you stuffing the grass? You'd have to stuff the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one seems.
I would just kind of, if it was that kind of situation, I'd just run on my rim. I would cut the tire off to run on the rim.
Yeah.
It'll last a lot longer, and you'll still get there, depending on its front wheel or rear wheel drive. And if it was, then I would switch it out. If you had a rear wheel drive and you had a flat in the back, switch out your tires and then go for it. That's what I would do.
Yep. Okay, here's another one. With a pair of scissors, you can make soda can tabs into hooks for fishing.
Yes, easily.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool one. It says you can make a lasso. So here's ticks have been on my mind because a friend of mine was up in Martha's Vineyard a couple weeks ago and contracted Lyme disease.
Oh, wow.
Which is rampant, just rampant up there. He's okay because he got on an antibiotic course. But so I think about ticks. And now here's a tip. It says make a lasso with a sort of you take a pen, right, and the tube that goes in the pen, you put a piece of string through it instead of the ink cartridge, and then you can turn that into a sort of a lasso, and I guess use it to get ticks off your arms or legs.
No, the only way that I've heard of getting ticks off correctly would be either with petroleum jelly, where it suffocates them. That takes forever. But a better method would be to use the eraser on that pen or pencil, and then you just spin the little guy counterclockwise. You just spin him around and just keep spinning him, and basically it's like a corkscrew. You just unscrew him right out, and then he'll let go, and he won't leave his little fangs inside you. So it's just a really simple technique, and you just put your finger or stick or that eraser tip, and then just spin him around counterclockwise, and it spins him right out.
That's pretty good.
I've used a lighter to get ticks to crawl out too. I mean, it hurts a little bit, but I've used the jelly. I haven't used the counterclockwise term, but I've used heat to get them to withdraw from the skin.
Yeah, I've heard of that as well. Heat the tip of your knife and get it really red hot, and then put it on his back, and he'll let go. But I actually watched the guy do the counterclockwise thing, and I was like, dang, I did it all wrong all these years. And he did it so easy. And I'm like, okay, that totally makes sense. But when they did a cross-section of their teeth and the fangs and how they hook in and stuff, and they go, yeah, you do it this way, watch, they can't hold on. And sure enough, it worked. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so Doritos or Cheetos or any kind of chips you can use for kindling. There's another one.
Actually, what are those little corn nuts? The corn chips. Corn chips are what I put in my kit. Those actually do burn really long. They have a high concentration of oil, so those do work really well for kindling. They do fantastic job.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just it depends on the fat content of the chip. Yeah, the higher the fat content, the better kindling it's going to be.
And somebody said one time that you could for a makeshift candle, you could puncture a hole in the top of a tuna can and stick a piece of paper in there as a wick, and it'll work as a candle. I think that's only if the tuna's packed in oil. That's what I would think. But
yeah, I would think the same thing. Yeah, if it's water, there's not going to. Again, think about the fat content that's in there. And, oil possibly work. I haven't tried it. I bet it would stink like hell. I sure in the hell wouldn't want to have it in my shelter.
Exactly. I tell you, the one DIY project that always kills people that I teach them in my store. Everyone that comes in, I'll show them. And I say, you got to go do this. And I get people addicted to doing it. But to me, I carry them in my kit all the time. I mean, I love candles, the survival candles where they're in the tin. So if it gets hot, you don't have melted candle everywhere, and you put the little wick on there. I love those. But one step further than that, I mean, I really can't cook a meal on that. I mean, it's great for starting fires to help out or give you a little light. But I call it a campfire in a can. And as a DIY, I mean, I tell people to stockpile these things. And I go and I buy cans from China, these little tins for 25 cents, but they're the perfect size. They're like 2 hockey pucks, put together. So that's about the size of can it is. And what you do is you just take cardboard, regular corrugated cardboard, and you roll it up as tight as you can. I actually use a rubber mallet to beat it down to where it's really tight. And I curl it up and put it inside the can so that it's from the center all the way to the out, just curled up cardboard. You then cut it flush with the top of your tin. Then you take regular paraffin wax, or for me, I just take all my old candles that are all cockeyed and half burnt and not there. It doesn't matter. You just put them all into. I put it in an old coffee can that has a pouring spout, and I melt it all over either the fire or you melt it over your stove. When that wax is liquid again, you just start pouring it into the cardboard. And it takes a while. It soaks in. It goes through all the little perforations and the holes in the cardboard. It goes all the way to the bottom of the tin and comes up. And then when you see it finally float on the top, you stop, put it in the fridge, get it hard, freeze it. Then afterwards, you go and you light just like one tip of that cardboard, and the whole thing eventually becomes engulfed in flames. And that thing puts off so much heat. It's literally all I need is that. At night, I just put that next to me, fire it up. It lights every single time because it's cardboard and wax and it's charred. It lights in seconds, and it keeps me, like I said, cooks my food, keeps me warm, gives me light. I can grab the bottom. I can have it run all night long. Grab the tin at the bottom, and it still be cold. It's amazing. So you can grab it, and if you hear, tactically speaking, what you don't want to give away your position, you just put the top back on, smothers the flame. You can throw that in your pack and run, and no one really knows where you've been because there's no, embers that are left behind to give away your position. And two, in a survival situation, calories are what it's all about. And if you have to go and, I got to go collect firewood and I'm exhausted, I humped it all day long, I just need to quick, warm up my food, hit the bed, and I'm good. You light up your campfire in a can, it takes a second. You don't have to go expend any more energy getting any more wood or anything else. You've got enough flame to keep you, comfortable all night long. So that's
and it sounds like
got to do.
It sounds like too, if you're in a really, really cold environment, that'd be a great fire starter also. To get something, you just add more kindling and add more fuel
you get a roaring fire,
to that.
Exactly.
Yeah, get a roaring fire and then pull that out to use, after you move positions for the next day. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and
that's
in an
a
urban
really good
environment. Yeah, in an urban, when you're talking about, guys in the city that are trying to move from, one abandoned building to the next, finding wood could be impossible. And this will be perfect. Plus, again, it's that stealthiness. It has a very low profile. I also put a little tin reflector that I built. And so it reflects two different sides. And then there's a grid that goes between the two tins. So now no one can see my flame at all. It reflects all the heat directly to me. And then it's got a tin on top so I can, put my coffee cup on there and I heat up my food, or I can cook right on that piece of grid that I put up there. So it really kills a lot of birds with one stone. But again, quick, simple. And then I tell people, look, in that urban environment where you are, okay, what happens when all the power's out? What happens when you run out of propane? This is something you could stockpile these, give them to your neighbors and so on, throw a stack of matches inside the top. So it's like, here, this will be something that will potentially save your life. I mean, fire is what it's all about. And so I'm always the backup to the backup, but that has never let me down. That is one thing I show people, and they go, oh, I got to have that. And then they go and they start building them, all different sizes. I did one actually in a paint can. I rolled that much cardboard in a paint can. I lit that sucker. Oh, my gosh. That gave off more heat than like throwing 3 of those compressed logs you buy at Safeway. It gave off way more heat than that did. And I just kept that in my fireplace at night. And so when I wanted some ambiance, I just threw a match, poof, and it would catch. And there you go. I had instant little fire in my fireplace.
I love that.
Oh.
You should, if you don't mind, send us a picture of one of yours, and we'll put it on our website.
Yeah, sure. I've got a whole little tutorial on it. So everyone wants me to make them and sell them. I'm like, no, you have to do this on your own. But once people do it, they love it, and it doesn't take much time. When I usually do like 20, honestly, at a time, and because when I'm melting, I just melt it all up, and so that's kind of one of my prepping stockpiles that I do, because I know as a barter item that would be fantastic. When you light it up, people go, oh. And I kind of cheat it too a little bit. While the wax is still warm, I have lighter fluid, and I'll mix that wax with lighter fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, you know, if I'm out and I just use a Sparky, you know, and I just hit it with just a spark, it's still going to pop up a flame every single time. So that's another little trick you could do.
Ah, that's great. That's great. And the last thing, I never did the 9-volt battery on steel wool technique, but does that work?
Yeah.
Does that?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Sure does.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a great one. So this has been really fun and really good. I'm gonna wrap it up so that we can keep it to under an hour. You guys have so much knowledge. It's so fun to talk about this. Is there anything else you want to mention?
Just again, practice with your gear. Don't be a mall ninja. Don't sit inside and think you're going to be a survivalist without getting outside, using your gear, and knowing it, understanding it, knowing what works best for you. Stay survival fit, body and mind.
I totally agree with those. Fantastic. And I tell people, you know, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, preparing, and you don't have to actually spend money or do anything. If you put 5 minutes to you and your family's survival, it's going to potentially save your life. And I mean that by just jumping on YouTube. There's so many people out there now throwing out videos of how-tos, could you see, and then if you go out and practice them, then you're like, I cannot believe I've never done this before. And so YouTube is a huge tool. And, you know, the videos are out there, and it's amazing what you can learn by just watching and be able to rely on that vision that you saw, you know, 10 weeks ago. And you're like, well, I'm in this situation now. Heck, this might just work for me. So, I mean, I'm going to go home right now and switch out all my controllers like you did, Matt, and put my little batteries in.
Yeah. Well, it's only for when you're in a pinch. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Mark, always a pleasure, and be ready for another episode next week.
You've been listening to the Survivalist Podcast with Mark Puhalle and Matt Gould. Brought to you by Survival Cash, Ford Survival Supply, and thebugoutrace.com. Please visit our website, thesurvivalistpodcast.com. This show is produced by Chad Dugatz at the Hangar Studios in New York City.